Good morning and welcome to Comeback Yoga's annual breakfast fundraiser. My name is Kelly Wolf and I'm the Executive Director of Comeback Yoga. For those of you who may not be as familiar with us, let me tell you a little bit about Comeback Yoga. We are a Denver-based nonprofit providing free, trauma-informed, science-based yoga to the military community. And I mean the entire military community: veterans, active duty, National Guard, friends and family, and clinicians. We know that healing the whole community is essential. Prior to COVID-19, Comeback Yoga had nearly 60 classes per week in person in Colorado. Currently, we have 30 classes, half of which are online and half of which are in person. And we are on track to beat the 10,000 student hour record that we set in 2020. You may be asking, how do you have fewer classes but more student hours? Super good question, guys. The answer is the need is up. Simple. Demand is up, requests for our classes is up, and the reason for that is that the pandemic has shed a light on mental health. The military is paying attention, the VA is paying attention, and we are there to meet the need. The other reason is accessibility. Our online classes have allowed us to reach an audience we didn't even know was possible. Our audience is international now, and we're so grateful. Alongside that, we can also reach veterans who may not have gas money to get to an in-person class. We can reach people who don't have a car, who may be self-isolating. It is just a level of accessibility that we are so grateful that we found, so COVID was good for something, I guess. Now, since the demand is up, you may be wondering, how can I help? You're in luck. You're at a fundraiser. So you can go to www.comebackyoga.org/donate2021 or call 720-259-4931. And we understand that this year is tight, so if you don't have the money or the resources to donate, please share our programming with someone you think it may benefit. Another incentive to donate this year is a $25,000 matching grant from the Prochnow family. This is a dollar-for-dollar matching grant up to $25,000, so you know that your money is going to go even further for you this morning. This grant was made to us in memory of Mr. Donald Prochnow. Mr. Prochnow was a World War II Navy veteran who served in the Pacific Theater. When I spoke to his family this year, they told me that he used to get together with his shipmates for coffee in the years following his service. And that tells me that he valued the importance of community. And so do we at Comeback Yoga. And that's why this morning is all about community. Comeback Yoga provides yoga, stretching and breathing, and we downregulate the nervous system. But we also are a community. We're friendship. We are a support network. And we are connection. And that is what every speaker this morning is going to focus on. So we always have an annual video, and this year, maybe one of our best. This year, we're introducing you to our Saturday morning Golden High School class. These students have been together through different locations and through the pandemic. They rely on each other, they hold each other accountable, and they are friends. And so I am so honored and so privileged to introduce you all to the Saturday morning Golden High School class.
Are we rolling?
I served in the Navy during the first Gulf War. Then my second tour was supporting the National Science Foundation, flying logistics in Antarctica. So I've been down there twice.
And I was in the Navy as well. Started when? 84, 85. Retired in 2005.
And I've been a Navy wife, Doug, since 1992.
And I was the Vietnam era veteran. I was Navy. I was a Navy diver, stationed on 2 different ships, and from 75 to 80.
I was in the Marine Corps. I was in Vietnam during the time when Nixon had gotten in there and he was pulling out the troops. So everybody was leaving but me.
I started out in the Army, was in the first Gulf War with 3rd Armored Division, and then transferred from the Army to the Navy, and I was a Navy corpsman.
When I started yoga, I told myself, well, I'll try this for 3 sessions, and if it doesn't work for me, I don't have to come back, or I won't. And I think that was a good way to have done it. I kind of had an attitude that it was sissy stuff, and that proved me wrong in the first sessions.
I remember thinking that I'm not going to do yoga because I cannot get twisted up in a little ball. And I was so happy when I walked in that it's not, we're going to stand on our heads and, you know, get all wrapped up into that sort of stereotypical yoga. And because I wouldn't have done that. Never in 100 years would I have done that. But the breathing and doing this and then being able to make connections with you know, my fellow practitioners, you know, it's just, it's been fantastic.
If I'm teaching, even though I've been doing it almost 5 years, I always feel nervous walking into a class. And then I get going and I realize it's my friends. So I can make mistakes or not, or have some fun.
After Eric's class, it's not particularly physically challenging like some of our level 2 yoga, they call it. I think it covers actually the whole spectrum of stress management and everything, all the way from your brain, your body, your muscles.
For me, what started out as, yeah, let me give this thing a try, which it sounds like a few of us have had that same experience, has turned into a driving force in my life. The support network of, you know, the executive director and everyone else on the team, they're just real people that care so much. And you can tell there's no agenda other than bringing yoga to the veterans.
Before the epidemic and all, we were doing, you know, in-person yoga, and that was all great, and that's all we ever knew. And then all of a sudden that shut off.
All of a sudden having that cut off was jarring. And now we're back together, and it was like seeing lost friends. It was like seeing lost friends.
Truly.
And Comeback Yoga just didn't seem to miss a beat with getting us set up with replacements when we couldn't be in person. We appreciate the effort that they went through to keep us going with our practice, and then, yep, but nothing replaces being in person.
And then when we finally got back here, it was just amazing. I remember the first day, it was just like, oh my God, you know, we're back. And so, you're all very important to me.
We have that check-in and that support that allows us to feel connection. And I think connection is so important because we're better together.
I think that supporting Comeback Yoga is important because there are a lot of people, if they have a problem, they'll move off and seclude themselves and isolate, and that's not good for anybody. I think it would be advantageous to get a lot more people in that need the help or just want to be part of it.
There's a lot of different ways to support Comeback Yoga. We're building community from the grassroots up. Comeback Yoga is foundational in helping me, helping us have connection, getting better, but allowing our partners or our spouses or our families to be better also. You can't really put a price tag on that. You can't put a price tag on prevention. It's not just about the practice, but it's about seeing everybody.
I could have never done any of this yoga if I had to pay for it. When I'm doing yoga, it's all about yoga. It's not about getting my money's worth, to remove all the excuses that I might have of not doing it.
I think Comeback Yoga is just, it's really the enabler, right, to mind and body and community.
There is no great funding. You know, it's literally grassroots. 2 founders that had this great idea and expanded and expanded. So in my mind, it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $1 million, the money's going to be put to excellent use. So the individual donor is critical to the success of our mission.
It still amazes me what I get out of it. Yeah, I don't even think it's yoga. It's much more powerful than that.
It's been more or less a lifesaver in my life. Keeps me focused, in line, on track.
It's a support network like no other I've ever found. Even if I never call on them or never need them, I know I can. I've never had that before, never felt that before. And when I walk out, sometimes it's exhilarating, sometimes it's calming. There's always a smile on my face.
Oh gosh, Doug gets me every time, and I don't think that there was a better intro than Alan cueing us all in. So we had hoped to have everyone, including you, in a big room full of community this year, but per the usual, COVID had other plans. But we are so lucky to be able to have a watch party at Color Up Therapeutics this morning. So we are going to join the Saturday morning class and my colleague, Comeback Yoga's teacher coordinator, Cole, and they're Skyping in, so I hope this works. And I just would love to know what you guys hope they took away from your video this morning.
Hi there. So glad to have all Saturday morning class here and both of you.
Oh gosh. Sorry guys, I cannot translate that, but my assumption is they said, we hope that you understand Comeback Yoga's community is essential and that you consider supporting us this morning. So next up, we have our mental health experts. And we are extremely lucky this morning because we have Dr. Janine DeAnnabal. She is a licensed psychologist who specializes in the neurobiology of trauma and vicarious trauma. However, this morning, she is talking to us about the healing power of community. The healing power of community not only in Comeback Yoga classes, but in our own worlds. We have all felt lonely and isolated over the past nearly 2 years. So I hope that you get a little bit of understanding about Comeback Yoga's community from her, but also maybe a deeper understanding of your own experience throughout the pandemic. So please welcome Dr. Janine DeAnnabal.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Janine DeAnnabal, and I'm the Director of Trauma Services at Mental Health Partners in Boulder, Colorado. I'm a psychologist and a yoga teacher, and I'm honored to be part of Comeback Yoga's fundraising event to talk a little bit about this last year that we've worked through together, this time of collective trauma, as we've had no shortage of that type of stress in our lives, and also talk about how we can continue to heal and grow from the effects of the last year. So you know that yoga is an amazing physical practice, and Comeback Yoga certainly knows that by offering classes all over. And I want to take a little time to review, right, what yoga can do for our brain and for our body. But I also want to talk about another thing that we often don't think about in terms of the benefit of yoga, and that's coming together as a community and the benefits that that has as well. So yoga, we know, is a physical practice, right? It teaches us how to get through both physiological and psychological stress, and how we can get that benefit in our brains and in our bodies. It actually is a perfect antidote to traumatic stress, because in trauma, we tend to split off from our mind and body. And yoga literally is a practice that means union, to unify mind and body. We know that yoga can help us through a whole host of physiological regulation, like balancing our blood pressure, help us remember, and increasing our mood. It can boost our immune system. But we also know that when we come together with our community to practice, that does amazing things as well. We feel this sense of belonging, of support, of purpose, to know that we're not alone in whatever it is we're experiencing. So when we feel that social connection, it can actually serve as what's known as a protective factor against myriad of conditions like heart disease and cancer and stress and anxiety and depression. And when we connect with each other, when we come and we see our friends or our teacher that we like in our practice, right, the brain starts activating something called the reward circuitry in the brain. It's like, wow, this feels good. So things like opioids and oxytocin are released, and we get that feeling of, wow, my sense of well-being actually increases. I want to share with you a fascinating study that speaks to this, and I think embodies that spirit of connection and hope that Comeback Yoga kind of builds their programming on. A researcher named Simone Schnall in the United Kingdom at the University of Plymouth did a study where she stopped people who are walking by a hill. And she asked people to rate how steep that hill was. And the results were overwhelming in that people who walked by the hill with a friend, a supportive person, rated that hill as less steep than people who walked by alone. And that study shows us that when we come together with supportive other people in our life, like when we practice, when we come to a Comeback Yoga class, we perceive those obstacles, that adversity in our life is less daunting, less steep. And together, we come together in this concept called post-traumatic growth. This notion and this theory that explains the transformational part of trauma that follows trauma, right? If we can endure the psychological struggle following trauma, we can actually come back even better and even more resourced than we were initially. So on that note, I ask you to support the amazing work that Comeback Yoga does in our community, in our state. Know that it's literally changing lives, and very grateful for the opportunity to speak of this program, and thank you in advance for your support.
Thank you, Janine. And thank you all for being here to help us climb this hill. We couldn't do it without you, and we have to do it. We have to be there to support our service members. It's not a question of how can we not be somewhere that they need us. It's a matter of we will be there, and we need your help to do it. So now it is one of the best things I've ever gotten to do as executive director. I get to introduce our next speaker. He is a United States Army veteran. He is a Comeback Yoga Scholarship recipient. He currently teaches for us. He also serves on our Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Committee. I think equally as important to all of that is he also happens to be one of my dear friends. Please welcome Dre Riverway.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for visiting with us today. A couple of months ago, well, a little bit more than a couple of months ago, Kelly reached out to me in a text asking if I would do this. And she knows that I won't tell her no. So that's why I'm here today. But I mentioned that story because that just talks a little bit about our community, right? Comeback Yoga has literally changed my life. And I'm willing, almost willing to do anything to help out our veterans in this program. You know, I can't talk about community without telling you a little bit about my story, my yogi story, and then more specifically, my comeback yogi story. You know, I came to yoga by way of a herniated L5 disc while working out. And I had tried yoga in the past, but at this point in time, I was in so much pain that I was willing to try anything. And when my doctor said yoga, I said, okay. I was kind of in the camp like Alan mentioned. I thought yoga was for sissies, and it truly wasn't. I signed up for the yoga class at 6 o'clock in the morning at the Y, and I was probably the youngest dude there by 20 years. I took the class, and what I realized that it really wasn't for sissies. I realized that I couldn't even touch my toes when I bent over, and I was in excruciating pain when I did a supine twist. But like I said, I was willing to try anything to make my body change physically. So I kept coming back. And what I noticed is physically my body started to change. I was able to touch my toes. And I can tell you later on in my yogi career, there was one point where I could almost touch my forehead to my shins. That is not the case now, I can assure you. And that supine twist, it was not as painful. And so there was something to this. And like any good Army veteran, you know, I wanted to kick it up a notch, right? I needed a little bit more oomph. So I decided to do hot yoga, hot vinyasa yoga. And if you've ever tried that, that is a workout, I can tell you. But I kept on coming back, and what I realized was not only was my physical body changing, but my mental, emotional, and spiritual states were also shifting. I suffer from depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And as I was practicing, I noticed that my triggers dissipated or started to dissipate. Less and less episodes in between time. And the only thing that I could attribute it to was yoga, because that was the only different thing in my life. To me, it was like magic. I made a commitment to myself. I said to myself, if I stick with yoga for a year, I'm going to be a yoga instructor. Fast forward to 2017, I moved here to Denver, Colorado. I hit that year mark, and I decided to keep my promise to myself. And I start looking for yoga teacher training classes. I come across Kindness Yoga, and they provided me with a scholarship for being an Army vet. If you don't know, a teacher training can cost up to $3,000. So they paid for half of it. And then they tell me, well, just go to Comeback. They'll pay for the other half. So I reach out to Kel. Kel gives me a call. I tell her what they told me, and she's like, doesn't really work that way, but let's talk about it. So they put me through the process. I met the board. I interviewed. They awarded me the scholarship, and I was brought into the community right away. During that teacher training, Kelly was checking in with me every other week. Dan offered himself as a mentor because he went through the same program at Kindness that I went through. Graduation came, and they showed up. Kelly was there, Dan was there, Margot, Ned. To this day, I can still remember being across the room, teaching my class, and seeing Dan's Warrior 2. If you've ever practiced with Dan, his Warrior 2 is impeccable. And right away, they brought me in as a teacher in the community. You know, teaching is an honor and a privilege for me. And Comeback came in the community and showed me how to be that trauma-informed yoga instructor, how to give this magic, right, to others in our community. This was apparent in one of my classes. It was a Saturday afternoon class. My Special Forces guys and their spouses, we set up the class specifically for them. And, you know, they came in one day and they had a really, really hard week. And I opened the class like I open up every class, and I asked them how they're doing. And they were vulnerable with me. You see, because we create a space here at Comeback where our veterans and our students can be vulnerable and let us know how they're feeling, because y'all, they can't always do that out there. And they told me it wasn't a great week at all, you know, and they weren't well. And I said, okay, let's start. And we went through the motions, the breathing, the movements, and like magic, or brain science, they started to change. Their bodies became less stressed, less tense. You know, you can tell emotionally that things were shifting. In yogi rest, they were completely relaxed. And when I brought them back, they told me and looked at me and said, Dre, thank you so much. We needed that. You see, that's what we provide to our communities. We actually really change lives. I call it magic, but as you heard, it is brain science. But we need to continue to provide this. It's such an important program to everyone in our community. Kelly mentioned that this year I had the opportunity to sit on the Anti-Racism, Anti-Discrimination Committee. And what we came to a conclusion that there is so many veterans that are underserved in so many of our minority communities. You know, when I became a yoga instructor, I wanted to make this accessible, yoga, this magic accessible to everyone, and more importantly, to include everybody. And you know, I think this year, moving into 2022 with your contributions, we can lay the groundwork for that, to help those that are in those communities that are not getting what they need. So I hope that you decide to contribute this morning, and thank you so much for supporting Comeback Yoga. You all have a beautiful morning.
Thank you, Dre. Thank you so much for your comments and for your support of Comeback Yoga, and also for your service to our country. I also want to thank all of the people out there, all of you who have donated to Comeback Yoga over the years. Without your support and your help, we just simply wouldn't be here. And we also need your help again this year. So if you're not aware, I'm Ned, this is Margot. We're the co-founders of Comeback Yoga, and we're really glad to have you join us today. We're also very grateful to Joe and Debbie Jaggers for supporting this event today, and also for Tim and Lisa Walsh for their support today. Thank you so much. We also want to thank the Comeback Yoga board for all the hard work that they put in, often on behalf of Comeback. And then especially, of course, Kelly Wolf, our executive director, who just brings so much energy to the whole operation. Also, her staff, Cole and Scotty, are just fantastic, and you don't know it, but you see the benefits even today of all of their effort. Also, want to thank Heather Domko and PBS Channel 12 for all of their effort putting this together. In addition, the Prochnow family have contributed so much to Comeback Yoga, and we thank you so much. And additionally, Color Up Therapeutics for hosting the watch party today. That was just fantastic. Unfortunately, couldn't hear them, but they're definitely thinking about Comeback and enjoying each other's company. So go ahead, Marks, take it from here.
Thanks, Ned. So Alan Norton, I was in that class when Alan came to Sissy Yoga at VFW Post 1, and it's incredibly thrilling to see Alan talk about what yoga means to him and has meant to his life. I hope all of you got to hear that. The message I want to give to you today is about connection. Connection is part of community. Connection is what we're doing with you today and what we hope you will do coming back to us. Our challenge grant of $25,000, we're right on the cusp of reaching that. I hope that you will donate. Go to www.comebackyoga.org/donate2021. That's the easiest way for you to make a donation, put your money where your heart is and where our heart is. Connection is something that I think all of us have become even more aware of through our experience in this pandemic. It won't become any less important. It will only become more important. So Please connect with us today. As you can see, we are taking Comeback Yoga to connect with our veteran community, military personnel everywhere. Thank you so much. We're grateful for you.